Hi, you are watching SightsIn Plus and this is Rameshs Ideas. Please do subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates and conversation with the top-notch HRs. Today, we are going to discuss how to be more productive at the workplace. And to discuss in detail and understand better, we have two senior HR leaders. Let me introduce Mr. Rajiv Burman. He's a global people partner at S&P Global, and Ms. Ratna Joshi is head human resources commercial for the passenger vehicle and electric vehicle at Tata Motors. So, Raju, if I come to you first, so according to you, what is the productivity and how do you measure it?
That's a great question, Ramesh, and thank you for setting this program up. And happy to meet Ratna too on this. So, your question about what is productivity, it matters a lot depending on, at least for us, on which area in the organization we are looking at. So, S&P focuses a lot on a huge amount of data that is analyzed, and that information is used to provide ratings to different companies, countries, and so on. And the focus in the data organization is a lot about how much data accurately are we able to process, and that's what we measure ourselves and the organization on. But on the technology side, we have a large technology arm. uh, a lot of the productivity assessment is around the speed at which we are able to set up, new tools accurately. So, when we deploy them to clients, how accurate are we in our deployment of those tools, and how bug-free are those implementations? So, I guess, my answer is productivity varies depending upon the function and the role, and that's what we try to kind of measure it for each group accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. To my understanding, the productivity is a measure of professional performance, and you can say the count and compare of the inputs and outputs. Sometimes when the outputs are quantitative, like in sales, like in production, then it's easy to count and compare. But when the output is qualitative, when sometimes you see the impact in long run, sometimes you don't see the impact immediately. So in sales and production, you can account and compare easily. But if you look at the HR part, suppose the culture, and in marketing, suppose the branding part, here you may take a time to see the impact. So in such a case, when the output is qualitative, then how do you measure the productivity?
So, Ramesh, if I understood your question correctly, it is about those qualitative facets of an organization and how do we see that, we are productive in that sense. So I'll take example of culture itself, right? We have a culture credo, Tata Motors talks about your bold, being risk-taking, being empathetic. So see, in all of these areas, we have clearly the leadership behaviors which are articulated to the best, so that is a common interpretation. We can say that we are moving ahead in the right direction. We are being productive in it from the time we have really launched our culture credit 2 years back, through a couple of measures. Be it about the kind of scores which we get in a pulse survey, and the survey which we do span India. So like every year we alternate. One year we have a pulse survey, another year we have a pan India survey. So these survey findings are a definite measure of how are we scoring, and not only scoring but in terms of getting those kind of qualitative comments, and also setting our benchmarks against our own last year scores, setting a benchmark against between functions, setting benchmark against different parts of Tata Motors. So how are we faring at different levels? So within Tata Motors, different business lines, different leadership style. How are we faring against different companies in Tata Group? So those benchmarks, the scores are a good feeler. And even before we arrive at a score stage, right, the way we measure it is to see whether we are going the right direction of being productive, and whether we are going towards the intended objective is when how are we really doing on the initiatives which we have carved out for ourselves. So if we are working on a risk taking element very very proactively, and there are three initiatives which we have outlined, right, how are we doing that. And we have something called as a monthly scorecard, in which apart from financial perspective, customer perspective, under learning and growth perspective, we also have an update on areas of culture, capability, and people initiatives. So I guess I don't know whether I've managed to answer you correctly, but yeah, through the surveys, through the scores, and through the progress which we are making on the related initiative is something which we can say whether we are productive or we are lagging behind in any manner.
Yeah, Ratna, absolutely. You have shared a couple of very interesting point about the culture. And Rajiv, how do you integrate these intangible elements when we talk about like the teamwork, like collaboration, like creativity, etc. when it comes to the productivity part?
Very interesting question. You know, our assessment of the business and the functions is on, what is traditionally called a balanced scorecard, which has a number of components which, we were referring to, whether it is employee engagement, for us, diversity and, inclusion is a big focus area. So we take engagement, we take diversity, we take adherence to our, values and competencies, and we include that as part of our scorecard to see how we are doing as a business, and what are the areas that we need to kind of focus upon, both on the soft and kind of the objective measures. So it is comprehensive from that point of view. Now, usually at an individual level, it is a little bit more, there are different softer aspects that we see, and it is a lot about, what is the engagement level within every team, that we try to focus upon, as part of the, typical employee survey. So we do it twice a year, and we use the results that come out from those surveys to measure how well there is progress within each team, within a particular unit and business and so on. And that gives us a lot of indications around the relationship with the manager, the challenges happening within the team, and those become aspects which impact productivity directly. So that those are the means in which we use.
Yeah, right. Absolutely, absolutely. Ratna, but sometimes, there are certain factors, maybe some internal factor, maybe some external factor that impact the employee productivity. So, in your opinion, what are these factors which impact the productivity of an employee?
Like you rightly said, Romesh, there are internal and there are external factors which might be impacting the productivity, right? So if I say, I mean, let's make it very simple. If I don't know where I'm going, right, if my direction is not clear, my objectives are not clear, and maybe I'll have to do a course correction multiple times, that might make me productive. So it's an external factor. What are the objectives which have been shared with me before I even create my own objectives? But yeah, if there's lack of communication in any sense and we start wrongly, it might lead to an unproductive situation or not meeting the required objective. So I guess of the external direction, the external communication, and how our employees at large or me as an individual are getting aligned with the larger org agenda is a very very important area. If we if we are not able to do a good job over there, there's something which is going to impact my productivity definitely. So clarity, also in terms of, I mean, when it comes to me, for me it's very important that how am I managing my right tasks, my priorities, and how am I able to really understand which takes a priority, and going by the trend, how do I need to apportion time, my time, in terms of the big tasks, the small tasks, the reviews, the larger stakeholder alignment. So there, the technical tasks which you have to do, the alignments which you have to do. So how am I going to budget my time is completely under my control, to the extent it is in my control. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, from an external perspective, the communication, the clarity, the resource assessment, all of these might impact my productivity if there's conflicting priorities, if there's lack of communication, if there is a lack of direction. That might be coming as a challenge to me. When it comes to me, if I'm not able to manage my tasks and time in the optimal manner, that might be an area which I have to look out for. And there are multiple other nuances of how productivity can be really enhanced, or what might be the right challenge. For example, and for me, for example, multitasking is a big myth, right? So what I've come to understand and realize is, you can't do 10 things together. You have to focus on one thing at a time. So when we are creating our agenda also, there has to be that right kind of breaks and right kind of switch over times from A topic to B topic, and definitely three things we cannot do together. So mixing of priorities also create a lot of challenge, so we have to be watchful on that front as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting point, Ratna. But sometimes, the wrong hiring that also impact the productivity, the lack of training that also impact the productivity, and sometimes the goal is not clear, the objective is not clear, and the communication from the manager to employee, that is also plays a pivotal role when we look for the productivity part.
Yeah. So factors impacting productivity beyond the conversation we just engaged on. If I don't have the apt skill, is going to impact my productivity. Whether I call it out upfront or not, definitely there's going to be creating that kind of impact. So if I don't have the right skills to do that top, whether it is behavioral, whether it is functional, right? If I'm not able to, so for example, behavioral, let me take an example. If as a manager I am not able to delegate well, I've not understood this entire ball game of delegating, what should I keep to me, and how do I hold my team members responsible, and how do I delegate and then empower and then demand. So it's going to create an impact. So those behavioral skills, the functional skills, the way I'm able to manage my stakeholder, make the expectation clear, these factors will definitely impact. So it's not only functional skills but behavioral skills also, which at different stages of work life, would keep changing. I need to equip, I need to understand, and definitely I cannot let myself stagnate on the skill development. It is something which I have to commit to lifelong. With every transition and leadership journey, I might have to develop new skills, right? How do I collaborate with external environment, maybe at a later part of my career? So yeah, increasingly behavioral skills, mastering them, we are on a lifelong journey on that. And I think more than functional skills, soft skills and a leadership skill also start coming into picture. We realize, we don't realize, we develop, we don't develop, but yeah, we can't really deny that it will have an impact.
So now I think it's time to look at the solution part. So Raju, how do you see what is the role of HR leaders in boosting the employee productivity?
So thank you. And I think HR has a strong opportunity to impact productivity in the organization. And the way I look at it is, one of course is having obviously the right kind of organization design, the right structure in the organization, clarity on roles and accountabilities, um, having the right job size. Those are structural pieces that HR definitely has a key role to play. And, we went through a big merger about 18 months ago now. And this was one of the big exercises to, for the merged company, how do you create a new structure, new roles, new job size, and ensure that you have the right talent matching up to those roles. On a more specific basis, the pieces that impact productivity, where again HR has a role to play, is ensuring that you have an organization and policies which promote work-life balance. You want employees to be able to deal with their personal lives and work life in obviously a balanced manner. And it drives a lot based on the kind of culture the company has and the kind of policies that are put in place. So, at S&P, we pride ourselves in providing a ton of flexibility to employees in terms of managing what works best for them, within obviously some reasonable boundaries. So, so that provides, clearly a key opportunity. The other is enabling a lot of learning. And, I think Ratna talked about kind of keeping up your skills. So a large part of our, focus is on providing self-directed learning. And we provide a lot of learning resources within and outside the company, both on hard skills and soft skills, to ensure that people have the ability to kind of stay up to date on the role that they have. So I think these are some of the aspects where HR has a tremendous impact and an opportunity to improve productivity. You know, finally, of course, once you kind of created a structure, provided training, provided the right kind of role, a lot of it is about kind of creating the right environment. So training up the people leaders to ensure that they are creating an environment where employees can, want to contribute to the best that they can. So that's an important piece. There's the entire issue of assessment and ensuring people are getting feedback to improve where the need is. So, and then of course there's the entire reward structure, which kind of, supports, rewarding employees who are kind of going above and beyond, what's required in the role. So I think in almost all of these aspects, from finding the right person, creating the right structure, to training, to assessment and reward, HR has a significant role in impacting productivity.
And Ratna, how do you see the HR can help employees in improving their productivity?
Just building on to what Rajiv was just sharing, very pertinent and very important pointers. I think right from bringing the kind of clarity which an individual needs in terms of the role deliverables, in terms of the priorities, in terms of how are we progressing on that. So, regular communication is something on which HR and communication as a team has a very, very big role to play, because to really be able to structure it, time it, bring the right, elements in picture with the right forum, both internally, both externally, and also giving platform to the employees to be able to connect with leaders on a more frequent basis, right? So communication becomes very important over there. Not only communication, the role clarity which I spoke about, creating those avenues of, being able to see on a continuous basis how are they progressing on the task. So we have something called as, continuous feedback management. Both, it's really helping in the pockets where we are able to leverage it, because ultimately it all boils down to, from a sales organization, it boils down to the next month, right, to the current month. So it is something on which we are scored on a monthly basis. So how are you progressing, and how are we able to do the course correction right in time? And this course correction can be of different magnitude depending on the pointer in question. So yeah, I think in the PMS bit, in the communication bit, in terms of ensuring the mental and physical health and well-being of the employees, and partnering with different stakeholders in this entire, in getting all of this alive. So working with the EHS team, working with the communication team, working with our larger managers in terms of getting the continuous feedback into picture, and also continuous two-way communication which happens from bottom up and top down, because both the venues are important, and HR can really facilitate and play a very, very active role on that. And also from time to time we can also keep really sensitizing employees in terms of what does an employee productivity mean, and what those productivity hacks are there. So from time to time we can also keep having those sessions, and not very formal, very structured or day long, but yeah, those tips and techniques which we can keep really working on, so that people also get a view, and they're able to maybe adapt something which suits their personality style and work style.
Yeah, Raju, but in some point in time, organization need to help their employees, cheerleaders need to help their employees to improve their productivity. But when we talk about the self-development, so in that case, employees themselves can improve their productivity, their performance. So what is your advice in that case to the employees?
You're right. I mean, end of the day, I think we all want to be in an environment and want an environment where employees are self-motivated and are driven towards kind of doing the best that they can. And I think a lot of it goes towards ensuring that one, that you're in the right frame of mind. So you're able to, kind of focus on your personal side, focus on your health, focus on self-care, and you've kind of done that. And that's an important piece. The second aspect employees, can, definitely, influence themselves is, learning on the road. What is required for the job today and in future, and kind of keeping themselves up to date with what's happening in the industry. What kind of skills are required, and seeking out opportunities to obtain those skills. So, to me, that's a kind of second area employees have in their control. And the third is, you know, it is about, finding out better ways of doing the work that you're doing. And for that, it is not only about following, how work is done today or what the instructions are, but kind of looking out and seeing what are the opportunities to improve the processes, or improve, kind of look at a different way of doing things. I mean, we have all seen the impact that AI is already having on the industry, and it is impacting, most of the jobs that, I can think of. And I think it's an opportunity for employees to know what is the latest out there, and kind of finding out ways to improve, their work processes and their work outcomes. So I think these three aspects: self-care, learning on the job, and learning the skills, and looking at what are the new trends and what are the industry trends. Those are three ways employees can directly impact their own productivity.
Very interesting points. And Ratna, what are your ideas to be more productive at the workplace?
So I guess I don't know. Somehow our environment is such that we get constant interruptions. So if we are able to create an environment which is as far as possible distraction free, right, clutter free, and get ourselves more organized and focus on work essentials, and maybe organize our breaks also accordingly, so that we have very focused intervals of work, and whenever we need to take a break we're able to take. So it will start with maybe self awareness of what is my assessment of how productive my days and weeks and months are, and what are my deliverables which I have created for myself. So unless and until I have that level of self awareness of where we are and how I want to improve. So like Rajiv said, it is about self development, but it will start with self awareness of how is my environment like, what are my priorities like, am I productive, not productive, how do I rate myself in productivity, and how I can slowly improve, right? With things which are in my circle of influence, because there'll be things which may not be in your control at all. We'll have those challenging days. So yes, creating a clutter-free environment, not going by the myths of multitasking, but taking one thing at a time, breaking it into smaller tasks, and also taking the regular breaks in between, so we are able to realign, reflect, come back re-energized. Because one thing back to back may not help. It may not be enhancing a productivity, rather reducing it drastically. So even taking breaks are important. And self-care, apart from self-awareness, so before we reach the burnout point, before we really hit that off, we are able to really understand it at a much advanced stage, and at least continue that rhythm of productivity of where we are and enhance it off. So thanks, Ramesh.
Thank you so much, Ratna and Rajiv, for joining the conversation and sharing your wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much.